Excellent. So today's cohort is specializing in highest awards. So this is talking about some of the key things that set apart the Girl Scout experience, which is an award program. There's multiple levels of it. So Shayna's going to really dig into that. What she's going to be talking about applies to all of our membership, but there'll be parts where she specializes in what that means for an individual Girl Scout as we go along. And I'm going to officially pass it over to Shannon. When you are ready, shall I move forward?
Thanks so much, Tiffany. Okay, so the Girl Scout highest awards are the Bronze, Silver, and Gold Award, and I figured we'll just go award by award and we'll just dig in, as Tiffany said. So let's go ahead and get started with the Bronze Award. So next slide, please. All right, so Girl Scout juniors can make their community a better place as they earn the Girl Scout Bronze Award. This award is earned when they team up with other peers. It doesn't have to be other Girl Scouts to make a difference in their community. The Bronze Award is the first one of the highest awards that they can earn, and they earn it as juniors. Girl Scouts should be partnering closely with their Juliette mentor to explore their community, discover a need or issue that they care about. So they're going to look for why is this an issue? Like, why is this happening? I've noticed this, and why is it happening? And then they're going to work together to address it. So Juliette mentors can check in with the Girl Scouts to learn what they care about, notice if they have interests that match up with these needs. So for example, if they're passionate about animals, they might notice that a local shelter needs help getting pets adopted, or maybe they need help with food, or maybe they need help with blankets, etc. So the goal is to ignite a spark of interest that will get them excited to make a positive change in their community. So if they can relate it to something that they're interested in, meeting this need, you're going to find that they're much more excited to work on it versus if it's just something someone tells them they should do. So let's talk about the prerequisites for Bronze Awards. So Girl Scouts must complete a leadership award before starting their bronze project. This helps them grow their leadership skills in preparation for the award. We are in the process of updating a list of these leadership awards on our website, and that's coming out next week. So make sure you check out the highest awards webpage. I'll put a link in the chat in a little bit. But these awards are going to have, these leadership awards are going to have different categories of leadership to choose from. So one of the categories is personal leadership. One of them is teaching leadership. One of them is community advocacy. And if they're done a journey or they're still working on a journey, journeys also will count as a leadership award, and that will be until 2026. So these projects are usually done in a group, but as I mentioned, the group does not have to consist of Girl Scouts. Juliette mentors and parents approve these projects. A final report is turned in to GSOSW, and then you can buy the Bronze Award pins. These projects require a minimum of 20 hours of effort per Girl Scout. We have a lot of resources to help girls get going and have their adults be supported on that Bronze Award webpage, which I'm going to put that link in the chat. You can also find it by searching Bronze on our website. But be sure to check that out for more information. And we also have a handy recording of a Bronze Award workshop, which is aimed at adults. But that can help walk you through what it takes for your Girl Scouts to be successful. So the recording for this particular group is aimed at adults just because we found that the girls had a hard time sitting through the workshop. So this is aimed at supporting. And then the one other thing I want to touch on with leadership that I forgot to mention on the previous slide is that the difference between a service project and a leadership project is that service is like showing up and doing the thing. You show up to the food pantry and they tell you, we need you to stock these shelves, or we need you to pack these boxes. And you're there for 3 or 4 hours doing the thing that they asked you to do. But leadership is instead identifying the need and addressing it yourself. So maybe you went to the food pantry and you noticed that the types of food that they're being donated, they need certain kinds of food. Or maybe you've noticed that they need more food in the non-holiday months because people are donating around like Christmas, Thanksgiving time, but they're not donating the rest of the year. And so addressing that issue by creating their own thing to have people to help the same cause, but it's their own thing that they're in charge of. They're pulling people in to help. So it's instead of doing a project for the community where you just show up and do the thing. They're doing a project with the community where they're getting them excited and engaged, and they're the ones in charge. They're the ones telling the people what they should be doing. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right, so what does a Bronze Award project really look like? I have a good example from a recent example. We'll go to the next slide. So this is Hope. So Hope noticed that there's a lot of waste from fast fashion, and that people don't really think about when they buy clothes and get rid of them quickly, or maybe they fall apart quickly because they're not quality garments because they're manufactured so quickly. So she decided to host Girl Scout clothing swaps, and she worked with her service unit to do that. So they put on an event together. She saved 216 pounds from going to the landfill, pounds of clothes. So she helped inspect it, collect it, mend it, organized it by size and season. And then she also was able to present it to the service unit. And she passed out information about fast fashion and global impact. So this is something where she's addressing not just the problem, but she's educating people as to why it's a problem. And that's a big part of a Highest Awards project is like, yes, it's a problem, but how come? Is there any way we can let people know why this is a problem, why it keeps surfacing up in different ways? All right, so that was an example of a bronze, and this is an example of a Girl Scout who worked mostly on her own for the bronze. Like, you're supposed to have people working for you, and she is in a troop, but she was, I think, the only one in the troop that wanted to pursue this project. Okay, so next slide, please. Let's talk about the Silver Award. Okay, so this is for Cadet Girl Scouts, so 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. This award, they team up with others to make a difference in the community, and this is the second of the highest awards. And they're going to, again, partner closely with their Juliette mentor, and they're going to explore the community a little deeper. They're going to find out what those needs are. They're going to work together to address it. So just like the bronze, Juliette mentors can check in with the Girl Scouts to learn what they care about, notice if there are needs that line up with their special interests, and that way they can ensure to be passionate about it. For prerequisites for silver, they must complete a leadership award before starting their project. And this is a new thing, if they completed a bronze award, that will count as one of these leadership awards. And that means that the requirement is met. So if they did a bronze, they're good to go on a silver. But if they didn't do a bronze, there will be awards to choose from, leadership awards to choose from. So the categories will be the same as the bronze, except there is also an addition to a category called peer leadership. So these are just different ways that they can earn the same prerequisite while exploring Girl Scouts. And hopefully there's a prerequisite that's right for them. All right, so these projects are usually done more on the individual level than a bronze. And they can either do it alone or they can have up to 3 Girl Scouts help. So Juliette mentors and parents will approve these projects. There's a proposal form for these, which just goes to the person approving the project. And then there's also a final report that they fill out, and that one gets turned into us. So the proposal form is there to help make sure that you're on track, but it's not turned in to GSOSW. But the final report is turned into GSOSW, and that's how you would purchase your Silver Award pin. These projects require a minimum of 50 hours of effort per Girl Scout. And we have lots and lots of resources on our webpage. So I'm going to drop that link in the chat for you, including we have a rubric so that you know if you're on track. We have an adult guide. So there's lots of things there that can help. And there's also a link to a recording of a workshop. So like the bronze, it's linked on this page, and you just fill out a Google form so we can keep track of who's watching it and where, and whether or not you're in a troop or whether or not you're a Juliette. And that way we know that they're being used. And it's always going to have the most up-to-date recording in that folder. And there'll also a copy of the slides so that you can look through and click on the links in the slides. And always, always, if you want to connect with me, I'm happy to chat with you. So just send me an email and we can chat, get all your burning questions answered. All right. Next
I
slide.
have a quick question for you, Jen, before we move forward. Can you speak to like why do these highest rewards have prerequisites? What
Oh,
purpose does that serve?
so the main purpose of the prerequisite is to prepare them with their progression so that they can take on this big project. Another point with the prerequisite is that it almost always, not always, but almost always sparks the interest in the project itself. Because when they're taking on a leadership award, they're learning from it, they're trying new things, they're stepping out of their comfort zone, and it's preparing them for this bigger project. And that's why we've sort of reevaluated the prerequisites, because really a bronze award is an appropriate progression step for a silver award. If you've done a bronze award, you could be well prepared to take the next step on that and go up to silver. And we don't have an award beneath bronze. That's why it has to be one of the leadership activities, but also by providing choices. Maybe you want to earn leadership, earn a leadership award where you're taking on things yourself. Maybe you want to be working with friends, or maybe you want to be an advocate for something. So there's different ways to do it and different programs. So again, we're right in the middle of updating that, and I believe it's going up on the 14th or 15th of the month. We'll have a handy chart for you that outlines what they are and what they do. Some of them will look familiar, some of them will look brand new. But the good news is that if they're already in progress on a journey, or if they've already completed their journey, that will still count. So journeys are going to be phased out, but not until 2026. And in the meantime, they still count.
And so would a person, so if you're like, I think this is something my Girl Scout might be interested in, or they're saying things that like seems like the highest award might be a good fit, making sure those prerequisites or working on that will be a good clue for both of you before they take on something so big, to make sure that they can carry through, working with others, again, identifying those needs, and then that way they've got their feet wet on that process before they move into the big project.
Yeah. And really, we want them calling the shots. So we want the adults to step in and support as needed. A junior is going to need a lot more support than a cadet, and a cadet is going to need more support than a Girl Scout senior or ambassador. So it is those baby steps on how much they might need poking, reminding, checking in, things like that. We do want them, I'll talk about that when we get to gold, but we do want them to have two different types of advisors on a gold award for various reasons. So let me show you a couple examples of a silver award. So next slide, please. Okay, so this is Anastasia. And Anastasia noticed that teenagers, at least in her area, are always expected to know what they want to do with their lives, even though they're teenagers. She talked to all her peers and noted that that wasn't the case. So she decided to create a podcast. And she interviewed successful women about their skills and career choice, and kind of mixed it up with different types of careers to help inspire girls into considering paths they might not know. So this is a good example of like sort of an advocacy project where you're kind of teaching people about something that they might care about. It's not like an environmental issue advocacy or a legal advocacy, but it is a type of um, uh, it's a type of project where you're just creating awareness, and that totally works as a silver as long as you've got people helping you. So and those can be adults, those can be family, friends. Really what we want is for them to step out of their comfort zone. It shouldn't be mom or dad. Mom or dad can have a role, but the main advisor of the project should be someone who knows something about the project. So if she's working with a podcast, maybe it's somebody who knows how to make a podcast. Maybe her brother's best friend makes podcasts, just someone who can help and give advice and point them in the right direction. And we want them to build skills. Leading your parent is a way different dynamic than leading someone you don't have that relationship with. So, okay, let's go to one more example on the next slide. And I believe, Tiffany, is Julia a Juliette? I don't know.
Phil?
Down in Medford.
I'm not sure.
I think she might be. I might be wrong.
Okay.
So Julia wanted to, Julia is very passionate about agriculture and the environment, and how pollinators affect food, the food that we eat, the food that's important to us. And so she created a pollinator garden in an area where there were no pollinator plants. And she also put together a workshop for younger Girl Scouts to teach them about the benefits of pollinators and why we need them. So she's got that piece where she did the thing, but she also added this piece about addressing the issue, like why don't people know that pollinators are important? And let me teach you. So I want to say they made seed packets and then they were helped her with the garden, but uh, it's a very cool project. And this is actually at our Medford Service Center. If you're ever down there and you want to see it, hopefully it's thriving. I haven't seen it yet, but I hear great things from our colleagues down there.
There's a question in the chat where Tamara is asking, does the 50-hour requirement include working on the final report, or is the final report after the 50 hours?
I think the final report is part of the process, so I would count it. We don't usually, I would say you could count like an hour of it. If you're spending like 6 hours on it, that's probably more time than you need to spend on the final report. It's about reflecting on what you learned. And yeah, it's really like taking in like what did I do? What could I do better? How did it go? Was it well received? Like did it make an impact? That sort of questions, but it's a really important part of the process. And if they want to, for the Silver Award, if they want to take a Silver Award workshop, that counts. So taking the workshop counts. If they spend any time talking to the community to figure things out, that counts. They just have to log all those hours. But a big part is that we do want to see them in charge of somebody. So making sure they recruit somebody to be in charge of and get a little experience asking that person to help them with things. And we find with Silver, a subject matter expert is a great person for them to be in charge of. And then of course, if Julia here wanted help, like putting in the garden, bringing in some folks to help put the garden in, and then leading the workshop, maybe you have a friend at school who could help you lead that workshop so that it's not just you up there doing all the work. And you tell them exactly what you need from them. So this is all really good skill building. I have such a hard time delegating. I'm not even going to pretend that I don't, but that is what I preach is delegating. And it's a great skill. Like I have to do it for my job, and I have to develop that skill, and I have to exercise trust, and I have to follow up with people. And that's just a very valuable life skill. So think of it in terms of like, even if she makes mistakes and fails, maybe they drop the ball and they forget to tell their volunteers, and their volunteers don't even show up to the thing. That's a learning experience, and it's a safe place to make a mistake like that. But I bet you they won't make that mistake again. I hope not. All right, let's move on to the Gold Award. All right, so this is the highest award in Girl Scouting. This is for seniors and ambassadors, so 9th through 12th grade. And these ones have lasting solutions. So not only are they exploring their community and choosing the project, but these ones have to be sustainable. So they'll use everything they've learned as a Girl Scout to help fix a problem in their community. And like I mentioned, that create that lasting impact. And these Girl Scouts are amazing candidates for colleges, scholarships, competitive internship programs, careers, like the Silver Award, earning a Gold Award. They will recruit volunteers and delegate work to them, but these are more, this is a solo effort. Like they are not teamed up with other Girl Scouts to do like a in tandem style project. These ones have to have at least 80 hours of leadership. They have to be sustainable, and they have to continue beyond the Girl Scouts involvement. So the prerequisites for this one is that they have to complete a leadership award before starting their project. And again, if they did a Silver Award, that counts. Bronze Award does not count for a gold, but a Silver Award does if they want to use that for their prerequisite. And then those updated leadership awards on our website, they'll be there next week. And so they just have to choose one of those if they didn't do a Silver Award. And I think the only one is there's a peer leadership one, just like the Silver. That's different than the Bronze category. So Gold Award projects need 2 adult advisors. So there is something, it's either called a troop advisor or a Girl Scout advisor, and then a project advisor. So the Girl Scout advisor is like troop leaders or Juliette mentors who will keep the Girl Scout on track, help her navigate policies and procedures. And then project advisors, that's the other category. These are subject matter experts. So usually they're not Girl Scouts at all. And Girl Scouts have gained more independence by this stage, but we want them to still partner with adults to meet their goals. So this stage is a bit more complicated. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so for a Girl Scout Gold Award, they have to finish their prerequisites. There also has to be something called a global or national link. And really, that's kind of like that root issue, or that digging down beneath is what I'm trying to say. So for example, if they wanted to do something at a food pantry, there's several types of global or national links that could have. So like working at a food pantry, they could address poverty, they could address hunger, they could address food deserts, they could address, like, there's many different topics that are more universal that their project can connect to. And that's sort of what we're looking for with a global or national link. It needs to be sustainable. So they need to be able to get someone or a group of people to agree to carry it out in their absence when they've, graduated high school or moved on in the world and doing other things. A lot of times that can look like setting up an organization or an individual or a school club to continue it. And that usually involves creating some sort of resource for them. Maybe it's instructions, maybe it's a presentation that they can put out there, maybe it's a website and somebody's agreeing to publicize it. I will say, if they want to do a website as part of their project, they have to have a plan on how people will know the website exists. Because if a website just exists in space and nobody goes there, it doesn't really exist. not in a truly sustainable way. So this one has a bit of a different process. We have a website called Go Gold Online. This is our national website, and Girl Scouts make an account on this website, and then they populate answers in these fields asked, and it will auto-populate a Gold Award proposal. They submit that through Go Gold Online. That goes to their advisors for approval, and then they click it over to me, and then I will connect with them to set up a interview with the highest awards team. So unlike silver and bronze, this one has another step in there that they have to have a proposal interview, and then they'll find out if the project is approved, if it needs work, or if it's not approved. They are allowed to work on it before this step, but it's not a great idea in case the project isn't approved. We did have a Girl Scout one time who spent over 300 hours doing a service project that she filled out a proposal for. And when we tried to help her bring it to a Gold Award, she wasn't willing to put more work into it. So it didn't qualify as a Gold Award because it didn't meet the various things that we require of a Gold Award. And just showing up and doing the thing, like I mentioned earlier, it's a service project. Now, service is fantastic. Service is helpful. Service is wonderful, but it's not meeting the requirements of these awards, which require leadership. So after the interview, we draft what we call an agreement letter, and that's basically an itemized checklist of all the things they need to do to earn their award. So it's like their key, and they can check the boxes as they go. So it's like, I'm going to contact these people. I'm going to publicize it this way. I'm going to sustain it this way. And we have several items under each of those things. They're allowed to change it if they connect with me and we draft amendments to that. But it's essentially what we use to evaluate the project at the end. So when they're done, they go back in to Go Gold Online and they fill out another form just like they did on their proposal. And then we set up an interview the same way we did for the proposal. So there's 2 interviews. And that's when they find out if yay, they did it, or uh-oh, you forgot something. You got to go do that thing. I will say that 9 times out of 10, if they forget something, they'll get it done. And we don't always require a second interview or an additional interview. If they've forgotten something, usually it's like, I forgot to email you my publicity stuff, so I'll do that now. But yeah, they want to make sure they follow that letter. Really, if they've done everything in it, they can feel really confident that they're going to earn their award. So These projects can be advocacy or service projects as long as they're in charge and they're the ones who made it. They can benefit Girl Scouts, but it might not be approved, especially if there's not a global link or need. This is a complicated one with Girl Scouts. Girl Scouts love Girl Scouts and they want to help Girl Scout properties or do things for us, but we can't approve projects that are something that a paid staff does. So sometimes if they wanted to develop like a badge or some sort of program, if it's something we're already working on or something that a staff member has plans to do in the future in a 5-year plan, we can't approve it because it's just part of thing. We can't exploit children, make them work for us. And then also sometimes our needs change. And you don't want your project to be hinged on something that could change or be pulled out from underneath you. And establishing a global link is vital. So I'll give you one really good example is a Girl Scout named Olivia who came to me and said that she noticed that the signs at Mountaindale were in really bad shape and she wanted to redo them. And she wanted to do it as her goal to work. And so I asked her, okay, well, can you think of like an issue that's related to woodworking or these signs in disrepair? Because we can't, it's not a big enough project for a gold if it's just that you notice that the signs need fixing. And so we talked a bit about root issues, and one of the ones we talked about was gender equality. So Olivia came back a little bit later and she realized that her school wood shop was all boys, and there was only like her and one other person who identified as a girl in the room. And so she noticed like there was a lack of interest in manufacturing careers with girls and things like that. So she put together a club at her school. So I think one of them was a Girl Scout. I think the rest of them were not Girl Scouts. It was just kids from the school. And she put together this like manufacturing woodworking club. These girls worked with our communications team to get the fonts right for the signs. She did some presentations on different careers they could pursue. And so she was able to do that thing she wanted to do, which was to redo the signs at Mountaindale. And all the girls came and installed them. But she connected it to something bigger. And the message that went out into the world as well was that root issue, was that she was addressing gender equality, right? So like there's ways to do it, but you've got to really think about it. So I would encourage you that if Girl Scouts are talking about projects that are properties, that you ask some tough questions, or you can send them to me and I'll ask them those tough questions. But really, the projects for Girl Scouts are a better fit for a bronze award or a silver award, I would say. Okay. That's one I always tend to talk a lot about. So if you want to talk
Well,
more about
it's
that.
an intricate thing, and like what I definitely learned that I hadn't thought of before, that if your Girl Scout is considering the Gold Award, because it's robust, and correct me if I'm wrong, one of the reasons why the criteria is more stringent than the others is there's actually a lot of benefits you can get from it. You can get a higher pay and armed services for being a Gold Award earner. You can get scholarships for it. And so we can't just let anybody who just kind of did a thing earn those
We've
high.
heard folks say that sometimes they got a job because the person saw that they had a gold award and was like knew that this was a person they could count on. Like this is a person who gets stuff done, and not only that, they can organize it themselves. It's like it's an exceptional skill to be able to pull off a project like
I
this.
mean, if you've ever led a project, you know what it takes to wrangle the cats and get all the things. But especially in these higher ones, if your Girl Scout is considering that, it sounds like starting conversations as early as possible with staff and advisors to help get to that. Because yeah, you'd hate for a Girl Scout to have this really
Yeah.
fully fleshed out plan in their head. And I know I was part of one Juliette who wanted really hard to try and build Juliette community, and they had to go through a lot of iterations
A lot of hoops.
to
Yeah.
get, they wanted a club, but then getting the adults to support the club. And, it took a lot for them to figure out how to make it all work.
I believe a few years ago, we had a Girl Scout that was really set on improving something at Camp Whispering Winds. but specifically for the camps that happen at Camp Whispering Winds, which, as we know, they don't happen anymore. And that's another part of it, is like, yeah, we can't control anything that happens, but we don't want Girl Scouts to be the reason that the Girl Scout Gold Award is not working out. Does that make sense? So, um, but I do think there is room here. There is room if there's someone who's really attached to an idea. They just need to think about it. And on the Gold Award web page, I love talking about web pages if you haven't noticed. Our Gold Award web page, which I'm putting in the chat, this has a link to get into Go Gold and get started. This has a link to many different resources, including a girl's guide and an adult guide. I believe we have the resource in Spanish as well. And then there's also a rubric and a recording of a Gold Award workshop. The only thing I will say is that the recordings of the most previous workshop, the prerequisites are now changing. So go off what you're learning today and what you'll see on the webpage versus what you hear in the recording. We'll get that updated as soon as we can. Yeah, so a couple other rules about Gold Awards is that you cannot raise funds for another organization. So a lot of times Girl Scouts visit a place and they're passionate about it and they want to help. And then the place is like, we need you to help us put on a fundraiser. We need to meet our fundraising goal. That's not a Gold Award. We can't do that. You could do a drive and get things for them. You could ask them, what would you spend that money on? And maybe I could do a drive to get things for that, but you can't do a fundraiser. And that has to do with just our nonprofit tax status and how we work internally. We just can't have Girl Scouts raising funds like that. The other thing is that if they want to do like a raffle, that's considered gambling. So we can't do raffles. One workaround is that if everyone gets a prize, then it's not gambling. So if everyone gets a prize, maybe one prize is a little bit better than others, but as long as everyone gets something, then it's not considered a game of chance. But raffles and games of chance are considered gambling. And then everything has to comply with Girl Scout policy. So if you're using power tools, if you're working with small kids, all of those things in our handy volunteer essentials safety activity checkpoints, just you have to make sure you're following those rules. That's a great thing for the Girl Scout advisor to help with. Okay. All right. So I mentioned, go ahead.
Since you're talking about money, and if you're going to cover this later, stop me, but on the topic of money, and funding, are you going to dig more into that?
Oh, you know what? I was going to add that slide from
Okay.
the other, but I didn't, looks like I didn't put it in. So let's just talk about it. Let's
Okay. So to fund, so as Juliette's, one of the biggest questions that often comes to play is how do we pay for the things that you're going to do in Girl Scouts? And so you can use your program credits that Girl Scouts earn when they participate in product programs towards the Gold Award specifically. Only the Gold Award at this time, because its criteria is so stringent, and there are staff involved along the way. We can verify that Girl Scout stuff is happening with this money. So then the funds can be used in that way. So if your Girl Scout is going to be working towards a big project, I've had Girl Scouts, Juliette, who saved up for multiple years. They saved their product program even while they were in junior high, because they know they had this really big project they wanted to do once they got into high school as their Gold Award. And they use their funds for that, because you can do that on your pathway card. And you can use it towards the supplies you're going to need for that project. At the end of today, we're going to send you links to recordings of past cohorts of this nature. There's one that we have specifically about money earning. And if your Girl Scout is going into these venues, I highly encourage you check it out. It explains why money works the way that it does for Juliette, and it specifically gets into how you can money earn, where you can, where you can't, and how you can use it. So I would definitely recommend in conjunction with a higher word. But as you get into it for your goal setting brain, as you're like, okay, we're gonna put in an adaptive playground feature in our local park. Excellent. Great. Let's talk about how you're going to earn the funds for that. And then that's something, again, you'll be working towards. And as you participate in product programs, we want to make sure you're as informed as possible. So I see a question, can you explain more about using program credits as a Juliet for Gold Award, like only buying supplies at the Girl Scout store or paying for a reservation at a Girl Scout property? What if we need to buy lumber at Home Depot? Just making example.
No,
Great points.
that
Yeah,
works.
those,
Yeah.
you,
We're
go
doing
ahead.
that right now. I have a Girl Scout doing that right now. So basically, there are two forms. One is an instruction form, and one is the actual program Gold Award transfer form. They're both linked in that letter I mentioned. We hyperlink them in there for your convenience, for the Girl Scouts' convenience. But basically, the Girl Scout will fill out the form and submit it, and then I review it and make sure that it matches what the project is, and then our product program team, usually it is a reimbursement, so you include an itemized receipt of what you bought and it shows the total. So if it just has a total with not things on it, it's not itemized, it doesn't work. It has to be itemized, and then they'll give you a reimbursement. Now, this is what's happening right now with one of my girls. She's purchasing something really expensive for her Gold Award. I think it's like a barrel that they use for composting or something. And it's like a $600 purchase. So she is working directly. She filled out the form and contacted me, and I talked to our product program person, and we are working together to purchase that on her behalf, because it matches up and she has the funds. So if it's a larger purchase, you can go around reimbursement and we can get it for you. But generally it's a reimbursement. So I'd say like 99% of them are reimbursements. And as far as bronze and silver go, we encourage Girl Scouts to try not to spend money on these projects in general, because silver and bronze, they don't have the product program credit the same way. And for bronze, really, you don't need money for that. You can do lots of cool things. And adults are able to do donation requests from businesses. Is this correct for Juliette's too, Tiffany?
Say that last part again.
A donation request from a business on like for juice or apples or something like that.
Um, I would have to get back on that. That's one we've struggled to get through because the processing of the donation is tricky. Because when an organization can donate goods, yes,
That's what I'm
absolutely.
saying. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, yes. So
In-kind donations.
in-kind,
So like
yes.
generally for a silver or bronze, adults would be able to fill out this donation authorization form. The kids can walk into the business and say, I'm doing this cool project. And then the adult steps forward and says, would you be willing to donate us a bag of apples and some color paper, or whatever it is that they need. And there's a form that you fill out, and adults have to do the asking. For Gold Award, the girl is allowed to do the asking. All right. Any other questions about money? Money is the tricky part. Yeah, no worries. Okay. How about we look at a couple examples of Gold Awards? Let's go to the next slide. All right, so this is Mahika. She is amazing. And she held basically she called it Fem STEM workshop at a bunch of a local middle school, and she got some 6th grade girls to learn how to code. She gave them little games and instructions on how to make things on the screen. But basically, she also created this website to publish her curriculum, and has information on other tech competitions, internships, scholarships, and she recruited a younger student to run it again. So she's not running it anymore. And I believe that person also shadowed her when she ran it so that they could learn how to do it. And the cool thing about Mahi is that she got the Luella Shaver Scholarship this year, which is a GSOSW scholarship for Gold Award Girl Scouts. And it is for $10,000. And not only that, Mahi then went on to get the GSUSA scholarship, Gold Award scholarship. So one Gold Award Girl Scout per council can get a $5,000 scholarship from GSUSA. And Mahi got both because she's just so amazing. So she's so cool. Usually for GSSW, you can only get one. We offer 3, and you can only earn one of the 3. But for the GSUSA, it's kind of a different pool of applicants. So she earned both of those, and that's just, imagine that, $15,000. Now the GSUSA Gold Award Scholarship is only guaranteed to be $5,000 through 2028. That amount changes it's increased and decreased. But the cool thing is that when I first started working here, it was 10 Girl Scouts in the whole country that got that award, that got the GSUSA scholarship. And now it's one Gold Award Girl Scout per council. So that's pretty cool.
There are 112 councils.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And if you think about it, a class of Gold Award Girl Scouts is probably between 9 and 25 kids. And you have to be a graduating senior in high school to apply. Mahi got her award as a junior, so she had to wait till she was a senior in high school to apply. But it's just another cool part of it is that if you think in terms of money and how many people are competing for a scholarship, the odds are pretty good. The odds are pretty good. So that's another great reason to pursue a Gold Award. Next slide, please. All right, this is Smarni. So Smarni wanted to create basically a room at her school to kind of help folks who had special needs, specifically with autism spectrum disorder. She has a family member with that. And so she worked with the school to make like a sensory room. And basically the kids can go in there when they're feeling overwhelmed, and there were different types of things they could do to feel more at ease or calm down. And she worked with various people in the field, and she was able to get on the local media, and they did a piece on her, which was really cool. And so more people are inspired to create their own. And she also created, I believe, a resource that she passed on for the school to A, maintain the space, and then B, for other schools to consider putting a space like this in the school, because it's a really helpful. Anyone who's been to a sensory room can tell you that it is very helpful if you're feeling overwhelmed or you just need some space. So that's just another cool thing that she did for her project. And I believe Smarty got an Emerald Circle scholarship, which is $2,000. Hey-o. Next slide, please. Okay, and this is Madeline down in, or Maddie, she goes by Maddie. So she was noticing this place in her community that had a lot of trash. And she wanted to talk about how could they decrease the trash there, not just do a cleanup. I think for a service project, maybe you would go and you would do a cleanup at this, but she wanted to address why this is a problem. So she decided to do a project on decreasing single-use plastic. So she organized a club that, and as you can see in this slide here, they picked up more than 5,000 pounds of trash in her community. And she created and promoted some public service announcements advocating for the need to recycle. And I believe she sent some of those to local like hotels and places in the area that tend to provide people with a single water bottle instead of a water fountain where they could refill a reusable sort of thing. So kind of tackling what's underneath as well as the issue itself. So those are 3 good examples. There are a large variety of other examples on our website as well. So if you follow that link in the chat to the website and just explore through there, you can see what Girl Scouts and our council have been doing. We just celebrated them at Gold on June 10th. And if you go to the Gold webpage, which I can link that too, but if you go to the Gold webpage, there's a bunch of pictures from the event, as well as the girls that were highlighted. There's some more information on what they did. Let me put that in the chat for you because that was a lot of fun. And there's 2 full photo albums of pictures, I believe. So with Gold, Girl Scouts who finished their award by April 15th of whatever year it is, those are the Girl Scouts that we will be celebrating at Gold in June. And if they finish after April 15th, they'll be celebrated in the next year's Gold. We like to invite all of our Silver Award Girl Scouts to these events as well, and we try to highlight a couple projects. And then for Bronze, we usually highlight 1 project. But Silver, we want them all there. We want them to be inspired and get excited. So there's some very fun pictures of my colleague and I in the photo booth. Had a lot of fun. So it's just another really cool way that we get the community excited about what Girl Scouts are doing. But yeah, I would check that out. So I think that's it for my slides.
Thank you. So we pretty much open up the floor. Then if there are any additional questions or, you can even kind of conceptually, kind of like Tamara's like, so can I like, so if I want to build lumber, like you can get a little conceptual here, or even just share if there's something that your Girl Scout has been noodling over, or you think might be a good fit for them. Feel free to put in the chat, or you can even just unmute. We'll hold on for a second and see if that comes through.
And I'll put my email in the chat for you. It is answers, but if you write Shannon Shea, that's the best way to get a hold of me. There are 2 Shannons, so make sure you indicate highest awards or Shea. Like the butter, that's what I tell people. I used to say like the stadium, but I don't think there's a stadium anymore. I don't keep up on sports ball, so I don't know.
Then you would have to Google to find out how that's
Yeah.
spelled, you know?
But like
Yeah.
the butter for sure.
Gotcha.
And I'm happy to connect with you at any, like we can set up a meeting to chat. I'm happy to chat with your Girl Scout. Yeah, the thing I recommend the most is checking out what's on the website and viewing. Yes, that's right. Shannon like the butter Shea. That's what they should put on my official name tag. But yeah, if you want to explore the workshop and then reach out with questions, like I'm happy to set up a time to chat and get those answered. And then we always offer awards workshops in the fall, in the winter, and in the spring. So we usually offer them 3 times a year and they are virtual. So that's always an option. Teresa says, can I send an email regarding the changes to journeys? Yeah, if you want to, that's fine. You could also stay on the call if you want when we're done. See if I can answer that for you. Yeah, happy to do that. Any other questions?
You're new to Juliette, so this was a learning experience. Excellent. Yep, that's it's tricky because sometimes this is too soon in one's journey to think about, but the
Yeah.
recording exists, so now you have it in your brain as a little tickle for when the time does start seeming right. You know, the information exists. As you know, we record these, and that will stay available so you can revisit it to check it out again when you're ready.
And we
Uh,
have Juliette's earning these awards. They are actively doing it. So that's another good thing to know that it is
I feel
possible.
like one of the perks of, or one of the better, like, why would your Girl Scout be interested in highest awards? I think one of the draws is, especially as girls get older and the badges tend to be a little less appealing, they want something with a little more meat and grit to them. That's where the highest awards and the leadership awards come in. It lets them like really sink their teeth into something and take a lot more ownership.
Yeah, and by this point, by the time they get to a gold award, they've really focused in on what they're interested in. And that's another reason there's a lot of like divide and direction of kids want to go in different directions because they are super focused on STEM, or they're super focused on the environment, or they're super focused on animals. Like they get this like they get to try a lot of things as younger Girl Scouts and find those things that spark that interest and that joy. And it's almost always different than what their peers are interested in by the time they get to be teenagers. So it's kind of, I think the Gold Award especially is a really great opportunity to just zero in on what it is that what they've experienced throughout their Girl Scout career and what they're really excited about doing. And if they have a skill, tap into that. If they like music, tap into that. If they like art, tap into that. Video games, tap into that. Like whatever it is they like.
Well, to the point of the Girl Scout whose project was recognizing that a lot of youth don't really know what job they want. That I read a study that like when youth are pressed, they tend to only know about 10 different jobs in the world.
Yeah.
And so it's real nice to tap into. You like music. Okay, what are all the jobs in music? What are all the ways music could impact other things you care about?
I think I have a Juliette Girl Scout right now who's planning to do a medical career fair because people just think doctor or nurse when they think of medical career.
So more.
So
Excellent.
she's holding something much more robust.
Nice. Well, I'm going to scooch through a little bit, and we will have time again at the end to potentially move into other topics, but we take this moment for what I call the classified. So if you have something you're like, my Girl Scout is really interested in medical fields, but I don't know anybody in the room knows someone like that? So you can seek a little bit of community support from the community you have in the room, or offer up community support. Tamara's like, my Juliette lives video games, but we have not figured out how to tap into that. Thanks for the time. Absolutely. There's definitely lots of opportunity. yeah, games, I know that Shannon here is a proponent of a phone app called Finch, which is a mental health habit kind of tracking tool that inspires, but like video games for good. Brush your teeth, excellent. Buy a hat. It's a lot of cute little things and ways that we could
We're
use that.
focusing on gender inequality in the game industry.
Oh,
Like gender equality is a big thing.
yeah.
A lot of the STEM careers, a lot of like entertainment, coding, like visual effects, all of that is male dominated. Maybe it's teaching some kids how to do something and then educating them on possibilities for their future, so that we can even out that playing field. So there's lots of ways to tie it in. And again, I'm happy to chat, happy to chat, brainstorm with them. And I have lots of leading questions already stored in my brain to get to kind of poke them and nudge them, because I don't want to tell them what to do. I want it to be their idea, but I also have a lot of experience with trying to get kids to kind of figure that out on the way.
You. So thank you, Heather, for coming. All the things that we're going to say, the rest will be in that follow-up email, but there's some things that just in general you might find useful as a Juliet participant that are not specific to this topic per se. We have a Facebook group that you can join. There's also that's specific to Juliet's. There's also one that is run by our volunteers that is open to all of our membership. And that's a really great way to build community and find those connections, especially if you're working on these projects and you're looking for teams. Maybe you don't have a lot of peers to tap into. It'd be great ways to find everybody. We have an introduction to Juliet Girl Scouts recording, which if you're new to being a Juliet, explains the overarching view. Those I mentioned that there are recordings of these meetings that you can see. We have a year's worth of different themes and some more information about program credits and how those can be used. So you can check that out. If we missed anything today that you want to come back to, bigger ideas, anything that you would like us to follow up with, you can definitely quickly put in that chat and I'll be able to follow up with you. And bringing us to the end, and bittersweetly, this is actually going to be our last Juliet Connect live session. As you can see, there's not a ton of people here. This is the most people I've had in a while. And so we're going to try and find other ways to help Girl Scouts build community. But I think the great thing that came out of this, the learning opportunity, is that we do have recordings of multiple sessions where we had people like Shannon come in and explain how Girl Scouts works for Juliet's in lots of ways. Those recordings are around 24/7, and now we can share those with our members as we go along. So this will be the last session, and this recording will be available to everyone later. I just want to thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Shannon, for being our topic expert. And I'm going to stop recording. And if anybody in the room still has questions and Shannon has time, we can do that.